to the Women of Color in Sci-Fi Television panel. I am so happy to see you guys. You guys look beautiful. Thank you for coming. So, this is my second time presenting this panel here, third time overall, and I love it each time because it is an honor to celebrate all the amazing women, all the amazing people of color who I've seen across my small screen who have inspired me throughout the years. So I want to share that love and share that appreciation with all of you. So let's get started. So the first thing I want to do is a short imagination exercise with everybody. So can everyone please close their eyes? And I want you to imagine yourself between the ages of about 5 to maybe 10. Look down and imagine like the clothes that you were wearing, the clothes that you were playing and adventure in. Now imagine yourself running. Running to your most favorite place in the world, the place where you feel most free. Once you get there, I want you to stop, look around, and see the world that is just waiting for you. Open your eyes. So I have a few questions, and you just answer this by raising your hand. Who here went to some place that was real? Someplace that you know? And who went to some place that was imaginary? And here's the kicker. Who went someplace that you've been before, whether it's in your mind or physically? When it comes to the stories that we create for ourselves, we become our own protagonists, we become our own adventurers. And I think that's so important when it comes to this particular genre. And so I wanted to highlight a story which I think really exemplifies that importance. This is Grace. Grace is an amazing character. She has adventures in her backyard. She sees herself as the hero, the villain, all of those things. And I think we all feel that way often too. And that, we see ourselves in our stories until sometimes we go to school. And we see that conflict. Someone tells you that you can't. And in this story, Grace is raising her hand up because the teacher is planning to do a presentation of Peter Pan, and she raises her hand up because she knows she can do it. The little girl beside her says, "You can't be Peter Pan. Peter Pan's not black." The little boy next to her says, "You can't be Peter Pan. Peter Pan's not a woman." And Grace, in her defiance, holds her hand up anyway. I feel like that's the thing that a lot of us do. In 1998, there was an educator who talked about in curriculum, you essentially have what she called windows and mirrors. So when you are reading a piece of work that does not necessarily reflect your experience, it's like peeking into a window of someone else's world. And it's really important to see things that are windows, but it's equally as important to see things that are mirrors, that reflect your experience back at you, so you can possibly understand and get a better idea of what's going on in your own reality. And in the world of curriculum, many of the characters are often white or white men. And so you end up with a lot of people who end up with a lot of mirrors and a lot of other people who almost feel invisible because you can't see. Now, what's really incredible about looking into a window is that you can see a bit of reflection. It's not that you can't connect at all. But sometimes it would be nice for you to really see yourself immediately instead of trying to navigate someone else's through someone else's eyes. And in the world of science fiction, it is the most intricate, concave, diverse mirror you could ever imagine. And you would think that in a world that has fairy tale creatures and unicorns and orcs and magic spells, that people of diverse cultures and colors would be commonplace. But we know that's not the case. But we do continue working on it and building our own worlds and building our own creativity. And so, while this is specifically talking about children's books in 2015, I think it's a pretty fair depiction of lots of media. We see all these children are looking into mirrors. How many of works that they see actually reflect their experiences? And then you see the little white boy in the end. He has so many options. If you look around, he can be a king, he can be an astronaut, he can be a boy with a dog. All of these things are options. But as you get smaller and smaller, you see less and less and less. So, what is this panel about? This panel is focusing on showing love. Showing love to the desires and the strengths of people from so many different backgrounds, and specifically the women who have inspired us on the small screens. So I want to honor your wish to be a pirate. I want to honor your wish to be, empathetic and kind, as well as our wishes to be, warriors, to be a fairy tale princess, to be someone who's fighting for the liberation of her people, or to be a scientist, or to be a mother. That diversity of experience is what this is all about. So, you all probably know this person already. And I've told the story 100 million times, and you've probably heard it 100 million times, so this is going to be 100 million in two. So, Nichelle Nichols, we all know that she was on Star Trek. But what you might not know is that she actually did have the first lead role of a black woman in drama, period. Just in general. And this is in 1966, I believe. One thing that was interesting is that she was going to quit after the first season. Because she was like, no one sees it, I don't know if this is important, and she is a classically trained singer and actress, so she's like, I want to be on Broadway. She told that to Gene Roddenberry. He was like, can you just take a moment? Think about it. She's like, okay, I'll think about it. She goes to a fundraiser for the NAACP, and someone tells her, oh, your biggest fan wants to meet you. She's like, okay, sure. Her biggest fan just so happens to be Dr. Martin Luther King. Yeah. And he tells her, and he's like, I love it, this is a show I let my children watch. And she's like, oh, that's great, but I'm leaving. And he tells her, you can't leave. She's like, what? She's like, don't you know what you were doing for little black girls out there? You were one of the first people that, sorry. She says, you were one of the first people to be in a non-stereotypical role. So she stayed on, and one of those young girls that she inspired was a girl named Karen Johnson. Karen Johnson lived in a housing project in Manhattan, and when she saw Nichelle Nichols, she ran to her mother and said, hey mom, there's a black woman on TV, and she ain't no maid. This was a revelation. And it inspired Karen to move into media and film and embrace her own artistic gifts. And so Karen, better known as Whoopi Goldberg, eventually, got on Star Trek as Guinan. Now this was in the 80s when, Whoopi's star was just rising. And so they were like, why do you want to be on this stupid rinky-dink sci-fi show? And she says, you don't understand. I am a Star Trek fan. I was a Star Trek fan long before I was ever Whoopi Goldberg. And to even extend Nichelle Nichols' influence, Mae Jemison, who was the first black woman in space, cites Nichelle Nichols as one of her inspirations. And she's also one of the few people who has a picture of herself in the International Space Station, and on the Enterprise, because she's awesome like that. Awful circle. This is Gull Fisher. Now, Gull Fisher is interesting. The show that she was in called Mannix is really a detective show, so it's not really in the sci-fi genre. However, I came upon her in my research because she's only the second black woman to be in a dramatic role. And she won the award for Best Supporting Actress. She's the first person to win the Best Supporting Actress, first black woman. And she said, I hope that people can see my character and learn from her. Learn about the real experiences of various black people. Now, she got her award, I want to say in the late 60s. A black woman would not get an award for Best Lead Actress until Viola Davis. And when Viola Davis said in her acceptance speech, we can't win awards for roles that don't exist. And so by the time that Gail Fisher unfortunately passed away in 2000, her story was largely forgotten. But I would like to take this minute to honor her. So when I say her name, Gail Fisher, I want you guys to repeat back, I know your story. Okay? Gail Fisher.
We honor your story.
Thank you. And now something totally different. I love you, Notorious. You love me. That's what all this panel was about, because I mean, like, and sometimes she's been the only person of color in her shows, and she's carried that, and so I just full respect for her, everything she goes, and I mean, my money be popping. I mean, like that's like 20 years. I added this one. Really? Kristen, you might not know, is actually half Chinese on her mother's side. And what I find interesting is in at least two of her roles, after Smallville, in the ill-fated Chun-Li movie, and in Beauty and the Beast, she actually does play someone who is of mixed race. And so I would like to think that some of the representation she was allowed to have just encouraged her. And there are some people you may have seen on the scroll that I had earlier who may not necessarily present as people of color, but are people who are multi ethnic. And I think it's important to honor their stories as well. And so you want to know how Grace's story ended? Grace, if you remember, after she went to her mom and was like, they told me I couldn't be Peter Pan. Her grandmother took her to a show where she showed her this new Juliet, this ballerina, this black ballerina on the stage. And it was so inspiring that Grace danced her way home, believing that she could do anything. And of course, she kicked ass on Peter Pan. And now on to my illustrious panelists. I just want to give you guys a frame, so there we go. So down the line, we have Nineka Wright. Nineka is a model, actress, contributor to Quirktastic, and a Power Ranger. How many battles do you have again? 3. Exactly. So, like, a nerd who can kick your butt. I love her so much.
I'm very nice.
Beside it, we have Somaera Choudhary.
The only ever brown person on any panel ever.
That's okay. She's my best friend. So Somaera, she's my best friend, but on top of that, she is also a published chemistry researcher, chemistry teacher, is currently getting her doctorate. And it's just one of the most intelligent people I know, so that's Somaera. We have Halima who runs her own media empire. All in geek, fashion, and you were recently on the runway?
I was blessed to be in New York Fashion Week for the second year in a row.
Right next to we have the lovely Sabrina Thompson. Sabrina, who is a NASA engineer. And you know all those black women in space that I was talking about? What's your inspiration, Sabrina?
I want to be an astronaut.
And right next to her, you have the lovely Zena.
Hi, everybody.
Yes, Zena is an amazing artist, and I know you do like more artistic work kind of on the like kind of governmental side, right?
I make government websites for important social services, less shitty.
intelligent and prep women I am. So my first question to you all is, what, if any, women of color in various sci-fi properties, whether it's animated or in real life, inspired you, or do you like really remember growing up? I'm going straight down the line, or whoever answers first.
So, yeah, it's on. Hello. This is gonna sound really weird because I was very young when this happened, but when Gina Torres popped up as Cleopatra and Xena, I was done. I was like, that's it. That's what I'm going to be. I want to be sexy and powerful like that, and then it was over for me. And now I act and I get to play that character on occasion, and I'm very thankful for that.
So for me was Whoopi Goldberg. The first sci-fi show I ever watched was Star Trek. So Whoopi Goldberg, and all I wanted to do was be that smart and look that fly.
Gotta say the same, you know, Whoopi Goldberg. She actually inspired my passion for fashion. I was living in Southern Africa at the time, and she had this beautiful, I mean, just her headness, just her confidence, her dispensing of libations, her confidence, the way that she stood up to everyone, including Kiko. Nobody could touch her, and I just loved it.
Okay, so unlike everyone on the panel, I didn't grow up watching sci-fi, even though I work at NASA now. I started watching sci-fi once I started working at NASA, and people would walk around the hallways, saying the answer was 42, and I'm like, here, just read this book, watch this movie, so I didn't really get into it until maybe like a couple of years ago.
I have to say the first sci-fi character that really resonated with me, I was probably 5 years old and watching The Magic School Bus. Like, astounded that there was an Asian character in the cast, and I don't actually remember that much about her, but just, representation matters and all that. And the second thing I'll say is, similar to Sabrina, I was only really allowed to watch public television growing up, so I didn't watch that much sci-fi, but I read a lot of books. And Olivia Butler was probably the first author I read where I realized you can write science fiction. It doesn't have to be focused on technology. You can write about how you're a person in the world.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. And one thing I want to also ask, because I mentioned kind of Gina Torres, how she was kind of like the only one in a lot of different properties. So, and whether it's in science fiction or just kind of in general media, how do you think having, that one person affects, affects the characterization, affects the way, the audience, reacts to that character? Like, is there a lot of pressure on that one person? Is it, do they have to be like this particular role in the group? So like, how does that one affect kind of the presentation for you?
Got it. So Gina Torres is an interesting example because I think everyone knows Gina Torres was closely used as the Black representation for most of her projects. Gina Torres isn't just Black; she's an Afro-Latina, and so I want to take it in a different direction, not relating to me, but I feel like for her, it takes away some of the agency she has as a person, as a creator, and some of her identity. And I think that's very, very wrong to do to your actors. But for the sake of your audience, I think it gives them the impression that you don't really care.
So my take is, it's kind of a double-edged sword. When you are the minority in that cast, you have a responsibility, but then you're just like, why does it always have to fall on me? It's not fair, but at the same time, it's like you are representing your people, your group. You want to do it justice, you want to make sure it's done right, but then it can be exhausting as well.
Yeah, I have to agree with that, especially when you are the sole representative, then you don't feel free to be you, because of course you're a human being, you're imperfect,
there's some things that you like, there's some things that you don't like, but then you have to feel that you have to be like a moral minority. You know, you have to go, oh yes, I'll do this, I'll do that. I won't make a wrong step. I won't say that I won't do this because then they'll be like, oh, well, you know. So it puts a lot of undue pressure and you don't get to flourish. You don't get to enjoy as much as what you'd like to do.
So what was the original question?
The question is essentially about kind of like being that one minority, that one representation, and how that, at least in media, how that affects, the characterization, and how that affects maybe the way the audience will react to that person.
So, I mean, you can take this and generalize it, right? And take it out of the media context. When you're in a position where you are the only one, like, you are like the trailblazer, right? So you can take that, and depending on your perspective, like, that could be something that empowers you and uplifts you and make you feel as though, like, okay, this is a heavy weight to carry on my shoulders, but if I don't do it, who else is going to do it? And so you can take it, you can look at it the way the ladies already presented, but on the flip side, there's an empowering piece to it where you kind of feel a level of importance, and it's beyond you. You're doing something for us, on a larger scale.
I have to say that growing up in the desert in southeastern Washington, in a town where there's a lot of nuclear waste buried and a bunch of scientists working on it, and in a town that was relatively not diverse, I found my experience reflected whenever I did see a woman of color on television, the only one, since growing up, I was often the only one. That isn't to say that it's a good thing that that's the representation, more to say that I could relate to being the only one, but it wasn't until I left, found more community, that I realized, like other panelists were saying, how much you can flourish when you don't have to explain yourself. You don't have to just explain why you're there. You don't have to explain how you're doing what you're doing. You can just do what you're doing and other people will understand.
Awesome, thank you. And I did want to also ask, so there is, we know the kind of world that we live in right now, which is a little bit more openly dangerous than it has been in the past couple of years. I'm not saying things haven't been subtle for a while. So how has, because I think there's been an interesting push to have a little more minority representation, but also it feels like some of the backlash has been a little louder over the past couple of years. So, what has that experience been like, you think, kind of in the media landscape in general? Like, are people pushing back from having more media representation? Are they leaning into it and accepting the conflict? So kind of like, what do you feel like you've seen?
I spend a lot of time on Twitter, so I do see a lot of that, oh no, why are they forcing this character to be white? I don't think that, for people who think like that, I don't think they're paying attention to the fact that when they go to the grocery store, 20-30% of those people are going to be brown of some kind. They're not paying attention to the fact that their surroundings are not all white. So when you say forced diversity, I don't think that even has a place in America at this point, because look at this room. There are so many different colors of people in this room. If I made a show about what was happening right now and I made every single one of you white, do you think that that's a genuine representation of the situation or no? It's not. A lot of you just shook your head. It's not. So when you talk about forced diversity, it no longer has a place, I think, in society. Because, again, look at this room. Look at who you're grocery shopping around. Look at who's on the panel. Look at who's around you. If there's no more forced diversity, there's just your life and the windows in which you are seeing your life and then the reflections in which you're seeing your life. Full circle. Got it.
I appreciate that. I do want to kind of expand on that, because you're talking about, the way things are out in the world. I actually want to ask Halima and Zena this. When you two are, out in the world kind of creating things and creating content and pushing things out in the world, is representation something that you think of when you're doing things creatively? Kind of what is the process like for you two?
Okay, well for me, I do a lot of cons and cosplay, and then of course fashion, lots of fashion weeks. And one of the things that I appreciate, especially about this area, is that you have so much diversity. You have plus size models, you'll have black models, white models, you'll have a lot of male models. You think about an industry, but women, they basically dominate. But here, you will go to a fashion show and you'll find male models. And when I'm interviewing a male model, I'm like, yeah, oh my gosh, men's fashion, because yes, men wear clothes. I know, it's just and sometimes they want to, express themselves through their clothing. So, so when I'm out there in this area, that's one of the things that I absolutely adore. When I'm at covering a con and there's different cosplay, what I enjoy is I like to tell people, I'm like, listen, you can accept an ant, you can accept a white, but you cannot accept diverse tribes. I mean, come on now, okay? And then when they think about it, yes, you're always going to run into that one person that's just like, this character was so-and-so. But when you talk, if you choose to engage, and you talk to them about the fact that, hello, listen, you're already in a sci-fi world, okay? So there is diversity anyway. Once you go through that, then it's like, okay, all right, I'm being really silly about this whole situation, and I should enjoy it.
Thank you for that perspective. I'm still getting my thoughts together. As an artist, I think my primary driver is telling stories. And the reason I like telling stories is that it's healing for me, and I hope healing for the people that hear them. And I'm particularly interested in stories that change how we as a culture think about people who are often misrepresented or underrepresented. And I'm always thinking about my audience. One kind of art and storytelling I do is future telling, where I sit with people and I sort of take them through a guided interview to imagine who they might be in the future. They tell me stories of their possible future life. And I like to think it's healing based on people's responses, because I'm interested in science fiction because it's a way of thinking about how are you going to be in the future? What is it going to be like to be you? Especially for folks who are treated kind of shitty in the present. I hope that we continue to exist in the future and we flourish in the future. And I think that's what draws me to science fiction, just the idea of our continued flourishing existence in the future.
Excellent. And I wanted to ask both Sabrina and Somaera, both of you, actively work on educating people in various ways. Sabrina, I know you work on educating young people about STEM and STEM fields and using your art to kind of bring that to light. Somaera, I know, of course, you were an educator as far as, chemistry is concerned, but also you mentioned kind of educating people about like your religion and your background. And so I'm wondering, how does that educational piece dovetail with, inspiring people of diverse backgrounds and kind of allowing people to see things that they may not see otherwise?
So that is, wow, that's a tough question. Okay, now I'm not smart enough to answer. Let's try this. I guess I'll have to go back. 1990s, I was a huge science nerd. I loved everything, chemistry, bio, whatever it was, but I didn't see a lot of women in that field. And as I kept growing and as I kept going through this USA amazing public school system, I noticed that there were fewer people of color, unfortunately, and even women who were encouraged to go towards math, science, things like that, because you, growing up, you're told, well, what do you need it for? You're going to become a wife and have kids. You're going to sit at home. That's what my culture normally teaches us. I don't know about everyone else's culture, but when I started teaching, I made sure that I encouraged anyone and everyone who was interested in STEMs, in whatever field, that yeah, you can do it. You can do whatever you want. You want to be a scientist, you can be a scientist. You want to be a pirate, be a pirate. It's fine. I wanted to be a pirate in my imagination for a long time, but no, and I feel like these day and ages, there's more of an encouragement. Like teachers try to encourage students, do what you want to do, be what you want to be, and parents too. Parents are like, yeah, you can do this, you can do that. And so, for me, I've seen it evolve. I've seen it become better. And that's my semi-good answer. You did good. So, like I mentioned before, like as a kid, I was not exposed to science or technology or any of these things until, I took science, I took physics, I took chemistry, and I did well. I took math, I was awesome in these subjects. But it didn't dawn on me. I was in the 12th grade, and up until then, I was either playing basketball or I was being an artist. And I thought, well, has to be some path for me to choose, go to college and maybe be a famous artist, I guess, or play in the WNBA. Like, that's what I thought as a 12th grader. And it was my art teacher who said, hey, you're good at math, you're good at science, why don't you try mechanical engineering? And I'm like, what is that? I had no idea. So I had to research and figure out what it was, and here I was, a valedictorian of my high school class, and I had no idea what I could do with that. No one told me anything. I didn't have people to look up to who were in science and math, right? So, thank God I got into a school and they gave me a full ride, and I did mechanical engineering, and I just kept learning and getting exposed to more and more along the way. So with my art, right? So what I did was I put the art down and I went through my studies, at least through the graduate program, and then I picked it back up once I started working at NASA, because the artist never left. It was the curiosity in me that kept me going and still keeps me going at NASA. So when I picked up the paintbrush again and the color pencils and everything, right? I started to think about all these children that I interact with when I do outreach at the job. And I said, there are a bunch of kids that I'm noticing we're not getting through to with our outreach programs. And the only way for me to get to those students, who most of them look like me, is to kind of take myself back to when I was in their shoes. And so what I do now is I formed a business where I tie STEM with art, what they call it, STEAM or whatever. Most of these STEAM programs are really technically based. I focus more on the art, and I teach the STEM through the art, right? So I'm doing that, and I'm trying to live that. So even right now, I'm still curious, and my curiosity has led me into the sciences now. So I'm back in school again, right? Ph.D., right? But I'm trying to live it out for these students, the youth that I'm, educating. Like, here, this is how you do it. Like, you can do art and you can do, STEM. And maybe it doesn't look like the way I'm doing it, but at least I'm trying to live it, right? For me, that means becoming more of a scientist than an engineer and combining those, because there's creativity in the sciences and showing that to students. And so that's what I do. But it takes a lot of energy and a lot of effort, and it's something that I'm willing to live out. And so that's my 2 cents.
Thank you, Sabrina. I wanted to open it up to questions that anyone has about whether it's science, STEM, science fiction, anything. Yes. Huh?
I have a question for the audience while for the panel. One of the things that I thought about when you were talking about Gina Torres was representation in terms of the ethnic identity of the actors and actresses in Hollywood versus the ethnic identity of the characters that they play. I will start by giving an example. I remember I lived a long time in China and Korea, and remember when Geisha came out, they cast a Chinese actress. All of my Japanese friends were like, what in the world? Geisha, Chinese cannot be geisha. But then when Colombiana came out, and Zoe Saldana played her, I'm actually Colombian. She's Dominican. There's a far cry between Dominican and Colombian. I'm like, okay, well, at least someone's there in this role, and people know Colombians have black people too. But then I'm seeing more and more, like all the movies that are coming out, a lot of the actors and actresses that are either from the continent or they're from the Caribbean. Very few are actually African American, but a lot of the characters that they're playing are African American. And so it's dawning on me that what I'm seeing in this this race to kind of have diversity is that the ethnic identity of the actors and actresses in Hollywood are becoming second place. No one's really paying attention to that. But they're just mixing and matching whatever they think, the skin tones are appropriate to the ethnic identities of the characters. And for me, I find that a little unsettling. Because you bring to the table who you are when you are representing these characters. And if who you are is a far cry from who the character is supposed to be, what the audience is getting is not a true story. You understand what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So it bothers me, and I feel like no one is talking about it, and no one is really paying attention to it. The fact that you have all these African American actresses out there, but they're not being cast. But the characters that are supposed to be African American are being portrayed by people who aren't African American, or I don't know. It just to me, just seems something's off about that.
I have to agree with you. I feel you, sister. I feel you. Because I have the same frustration sometimes when I see a character and I'm like, that the character is supposed to be, African American or Egyptian. That's not an Egyptian person. That's not an African American person. You're not portraying the character properly by allowing a white person to play that character. You're not justifying it. You're not respecting it. I have so many problems with Prince of Egypt. We will go through that some other time. We don't have that much time. But I understand what you feel. I feel there are plenty of actors and actresses out there that can justify those roles. That the Hollywood industry does have a hand on. But like someone said, when Angela Bassett got her Oscar, or
Violas.
Sorry, Violas. Oh my God, I'm so stupid. She got her award. Someone in the audience said it took too long, and I agree. It's taking Hollywood way too long to identify that they have amazing people in the industry who can justify these characters.
But I will say this. There are, 5, maybe 6 boxes on the census for race. Mm-hmm. We, especially in America, we group large groups of people into one thing and say, okay, we're done. And that's way unfortunate. However, there's this really interesting, and I'm not sure if irony is the right word, where even if you are lumping, let's say, Latinx people into one group, I'll actually go back to one of my favorite shows, Roswell, and Roswell Mexico is my new favorite show these days. But in its original iteration, the product was based off of the main character was Liz Ortejo. She is a Latinx Mexican American young girl. In its original iteration, they made her this partner and she's white. And so you see that kind of whitewashing of character, which just has happened often, right? Now in the new iteration, Liz Ortejo is back, and they cast a Latinx actress. However, she's Cuban, not Mexican American. And it's like like the need of having the proper ethnicities represented is super important, but unfortunately I feel like sometimes the bar is so low that people don't even necessarily get to the bare minimum, and let alone, even what should be normal. It should be normal to have people of that specific ethnicity, that specific race to represent those characters, but sometimes, Hollywood doesn't even get there. So, I know, I have mixed feelings about this, not because of what I don't think it should be, but because just because of where I feel people seem to be willing to go as opposed to where they should be. Kind of messed up. You said something.
I also want to add that even if they cast the right type of person that looks that same way, even within that thing, you have diversity within that. One of my pet peeves is because, my family's from Tanzania, we speak Swahili, and anytime that you see somebody from East Africa and they have a Nigerian accent or a South African accent, you look at them and you're like, really? There was no one? There's Swahili?
And the entire continent?
Okay. But then again, you can look at him like the Outback guy, okay? You know that he's not Australian. So, you have to, yes, there are people that are trying to do diversity and do it right, but then, if you're going to do that, make sure you pay attention and try and cast it right.
Do it on purpose. I saw one other.
Just kind of follow-up question on this. When I was following Roma, which is not sci-fi,
Right.
very appropriately cast in this thread, and seeing a lot of the backlash that was coming from some of the actresses in Mexico that had a much more clearly Spanish colonizer lineage, and complaining about the casting of indigenous people in the roles. For me, I was like, are you kidding me? But I'm also wondering, I intentionally went and saw that movie 3 times in the theater because I thought it was amazing. How else can we push as participants, as audience members, as consumers of sci-fi and other genres to make sure that representation is happening at all and then well? What else can we do?
Exactly what you did. You saw the movie, this sounds so dumb, but tweeting about it helps a lot. Writing to the production offices does a lot. Writing a letter, do it the snail mail way. Every time you talk about what you liked about that movie and why you liked that movie, you are helping that production company, that casting company know that their choices in making a diverse cast and casting correctly, they were appreciated for it. And they love that. They love that.
I also say knowing some of the background, as in, why something is done this way. What are some of the underlying aspects of our society which allows systematic racism to continue to exist, which includes media. Knowing what that is, being knowledgeable, and then being able to say, you did this, which equals that. Don't do that again. Roll the newspaper back up with facts.
We have 1 minute. We went over.
We went over. We were happy to answer any questions that you guys have.
Thank you so much.
And also lastly, I have on our screen the social media of Nineka, social media of Halima, social media of Guinan, and social media of Sabrina. So if you guys want to follow them, as you should, because they're awesome, smart, intelligent, kick-ass women. Don't use my Sabrina daughter, she's a